With Blake Wheeler and Pierre-Luc Dubois moving on, do the Jets have enough firepower to compete in the wild, wild west? Hey everyone, Rob Wong here. Welcome into another NHL season preview. This time we'll take a look at the Winnipeg Jets, and joining me to do that are Ted Wyman and Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun. And guys, the departure of Pierre-Luc Dubois and longtime captain Blake Wheeler has definitely changed the look of the forward group. Scott, we'll start with you. Which players do you think will step up in their absence?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's room for quite a bit of it. You've lost two veteran pieces of your top six. One guy who had been here for 12 years, and another who had been here for only a few, but had worked his way, or not even worked his way, had just become the second line center, just kind of based on his skill set in Dubois. So, to me, obviously Cole Perfetti is the first one that stands out. He's going to be given a chance to win that second line center job. He was drafted as a center out of the OHL in 2020, and this is kind of where they envisioned him to play. But he's coming off a couple of years where he both have ended in injury, season-ending injuries for both of them. So he's had limited playing time, let's say, in a little bit of a sense there. But I think for the Jets right now, it's certainly him. And then I would look to a guy like Gabe Vilardi too, because if Perfetti can't, take a hold of that center job, Gabe Vilardi is going to be looked at. Gabe Vilardi is one of the return pieces, the centerpiece really in the Dubois trade that sent Dubois to Los Angeles. So, there's definitely going to be room for a lot of guys. I look at a guy like Nikolai Ehlers, who is going to have more of a prominent role, it appears, in the top six. And then, with Mark Scheifele still in Winnipeg to this point, there's going to be a lot of this that rests on his shoulders as well. So, this team needs to make up, roughly 50 or 60 goals every season that they've lost in Dubois and in Blake Wheeler. So it's quite a bit of, they've lost a little bit, but they're confident that the return that they got in the Dubois trade has actually made their lineup quite deeper. So let's say addition by subtraction here. But if I'm looking at players, it's Perfetti at top, Vilardi next, and then you're thinking about the guys that have been here for quite a while, like the Nikolai Ehlers and the Mark Scheifele's that'll be looked and tasked with moving this team forward in this new direction that they're going in.
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of that, Scott. I think another player that really stands out for me in terms of his importance this season is Adam Lowry, who's been named the captain in absence of Blake Wheeler. They didn't even have a captain last year. Lowry was one of the assistants along with Josh Morrissey and Mark Scheifele. And it's pretty important to have Adam Lowry and Josh Morrissey become the real voices of this team. I don't think they allowed that to happen last year because Wheeler was still in the room. And as you said, addition by subtraction, they needed to make a move that was going to change the culture of this team in that locker room. And that meant getting Blake Wheeler out of there and handing the reins of the captaincy, of the leadership to younger players. Not that young, but Adam Lowry, is a player who has been, drafted and developed by this team. So is Josh Morrissey. And they're guys that have been learning the ropes as leaders, and now it's their team to take over. And I think Kyle Connor is a guy who has the potential to do a lot of scoring. It doesn't necessarily fill the void because he already was doing it. But when you're looking for guys to step up, he's a guy that has to step up. It's not like he's playing in the shadow of somebody else anymore. He's one of the true veterans on this team, and he's going to have to play like it. And that means at both ends of the ice. You can't be a one-way player on this team. And Mark Scheifele, we kind of forget about him almost because I think so many people have written him off as a guy who doesn't try hard enough and maybe isn't as well respected in the room as you'd like your top center to be. Also a free agent at the end of the year and potentially is going to be moved at some point. And you got Connor Hellebuck in goal, who's another veteran and a huge key to a team that you'd hope would stand up and start stealing things, but then his future is so cloudy as well. So this team has a large amount of change that it's dealing with right now, but it does have a second year with head coach Rick Bowness, who is not messing around. He expects a lot from these guys. And he expects them to step up. And if they don't, he's going to let them know. He's going to let the world know. And they better get used to it.
All right, well, 30 seconds or less, Scott. The Jets snuck into a playoff spot last year. Can they do it again in another competitive battle in the West?
Yeah, everything that we've said, and there's going to be a lot of uncertainty this season, and plenty of distraction. A couple of key stars kind of in contract years, and no extensions in place. So in the Canadian market, those things are magnified more. But that Dubois trade really changed the complexion of this team. If you look at the Jets' early lines in training camp, they have all three of those guys spread out on the lineup. One's on the first line, Velarde. Alex Iafallo is going to start on the third line, and Rasmus Kupari will be the fourth line center to start. But if you look at their roster, and we were given the lines on Wednesday by head coach Rick Bowness, it's a lot deeper than it has been in a lot of years. So if that proves to be the case, they can ice four lines that can chip in on some scoring, especially the bottom six. If the defense can improve on their scoring and they get world-class goaltending like they've had from Connor Hellebuck, I think there is a recipe there for at least being in the mix, if not finding a way to get into at least a wild card spot or maybe even third place in the Central Division.
I like what Rick Bowness does for this team as a coach. I think he can really light a fire under them. It's just a matter of can he do it for the entire season, because last season he could not, and he was as frustrated as anybody. And it's going to be a question of whether those veterans that we mentioned before step up and help this team move forward from all that it's gone through for the last few years. I don't think this, to me, looks like a playoff team. I think that the league has, the division has gotten better. Everybody is improving. The Jets have been pretty stagnant for a while. They'd have to harness what they did at the beginning of last year, and that's going to be tough because there was a lot of hard feelings at the end of the year when the coach and the players threw each other under the bus, and now they're all back in the same room again, and they're trying to make it happen. How do you get out to a quick start in that environment? That's hard to say. Rick Bowness is going to do his very best to make it happen, but I think they're going to be a bubble team that just misses, and I do think unless, as Scott said, they can somehow get Connor Hellebuck on a shorter deal, they're going to be trading those top stars before the trade deadline.
Well, lots of new faces for the Jets. We'll see how it works out this season in Winnipeg. For all of Ted and Scott's Jets coverage this season, head over to the Winnipeg Sun.